Hello and welcome to this week's episode of A Mic on the Podium with me, Michael Seal. Before we start, I want to thank my latest Patreon subscriber, Foster, for his support as well as all my other Patreon subscribers. If you would like to support the podcast financially and gain access to exclusive companion mini-episodes, articles, group Zoom meetings, or 2 brand new series of interviews, head over to patreon.com/A Mic on the Podium, where you will find 6 different levels of subscription, the cheapest being the price of a glass of wine once a month. Alternatively, go to justgiving.com, search for A Mic on the Podium, and make a one-off donation there. Details are in the show notes below. Today I conduct a conversation with a young French conductor who, in her short career, has already founded her own orchestra, embarked on a very successful guest conducting career all across the globe, and she is the current Taki Concordia Alsop Conducting Fellow. It's a great pleasure to welcome Chloé van Soeterstède. Chloé, lovely to speak to you and see you via Zoom today. How are you?
So nice to be with you, Mike, and I'm really well, thanks.
Good. Judging by your accent, and I know because I've done my homework as always, you're from France. So whereabouts in France did you grow up, and at what stage did music come into your life? Musical family, or did it come out of the blue like mine did?
Well, so I'm from Paris, and my family is not musical. And so, but, my parents really valued culture, even though they were not at all part of this world. And growing up in Paris, I think it's quite a gift to, you open your door and you have cinemas, you have concert halls, museums, everything there. So we really took advantage of this when I was growing up. And also I was growing up really in the center of Paris. So everything was so close. My first musical kind of maybe memory, I would say, was from the age of 5. I guess that's where we get our memory. My mom would argue, no, this was age 3 or something, where we went to a concert, and I really clearly remember hearing seeing the violins play. Yeah, it was a great experience, and I remember going back home and just miming the violins. And but then my parents were really busy with their work. My dad traveled a lot, but I really apparently was insisting on doing music. So from the age of 5, from 5 to 8, actually, I went to a little kind of Wednesday afternoon 1 hour of musical workshop with Jean-Michel. Jean-Michel was my teacher, and I remember him. And I created such a strong link with music. Apparently I was good in rhythm, and he said, why don't you put Chloé in the music school? And my mom, of course, argued, saying, well, we'd love to, of course, but we need to make sure that our diaries really match. I found great friends actually over there, and this Wednesday afternoon was the brightness of my week. I carried on going to the music school, so music conservatoire. In each arrondissement in Paris, you have a music school, so culture is quite developed there. And the downside, or maybe the upside, let's see how we see, but the downside of music school is that you have to start with theory without touching any instruments. So I think that's also why, and we can talk about it later as well, but for me, French musicians are very, very good in solfège, very good in ear training. This is really something we do from age 7 or 8. So this was a bit difficult to, of course, do all the theory, everything, and then you have to wait like at least a year to touch your instruments. So it's also, I think, give you a little bit of like, are you strong enough to carry on? Do you actually have the will?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? I would say that my experience was almost the exact opposite. That, I was given a violin to play when I was 9, and it was all about playing. And I only encountered theory when I had to take my first exam, my grade 1, as it is over here. It was from grade 1 to grade 8, and you have to take oral tests, and you have to take... basically, I did oral tests until grade 5. I didn't do any theory at all until I had to pass my grade 5 theory to carry on doing the rest of the exams, which I look back on and think, oh my God, I wished I'd had your experience. But then when I was 9, I'm not sure I could have just sat there and done a year of theory. In fact, I know I couldn't. There's no way I could have done that. So yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, yeah, you can look back on these things and think, thank God I did do that, or thank God I didn't do that. I mean, it's tricky.
Yeah, it trained a lot of my ear. Now, actually, we have to sing in the choir before touching the instrument. So it was not only theory. Otherwise, it would be a little bit uh, difficult for the kids of 8. I mean, when you're 8, you just want to just to play to make some noise. So my parents arranged their diaries, and so here I studied the violin. I was absolutely not forced. This was really my own, wish, and I carried on until much later, the age of 20, where I swapped to viola. We can
right, okay,
discuss that later.
Well, in the first thing, of course, if you're playing the violin in Paris, I am assuming that therefore Paris has some sort of youth orchestra. I don't know. When were you first playing in orchestras? And at any stage, even at this point, when you're beginning and you're learning and you're encountering playing with other people for the first time, when did you encounter conductors, and did it mean anything to you?
Yeah, so I started when in the same conservatoire, so it was in the 5th arrondissement in Paris, Gabriel Fauré, and we go from maybe 3rd year or 4th year, you have to go to the ensemble, and I could really clearly see that no one wanted to be there. I wanted to be there. I loved it, absolutely loved it. And at the start, I had a male conductor. So anyway, I was quite interested anyways since the start, very fascinated, always listening. And actually something quite funny, when I was at nursery, I have a book from nursery, and it's always written, Chloé observed. Chloé observed today. Before I go somewhere or I make friends, I observe and make sure that I'm in good territory, and then up I go. And once I go, really. So I was at the back of the second violin, listening, observing, and then year by year, you go on the front you have more responsibility. And then eventually I went to the next level orchestra, and eventually I become the leader, because I really, really, really wanted to. I was just so interested. And I had the scores on the floor. And my conductor in this level orchestra was a female. So I never had this kind of doubt. I never had this barrier, never. And one day at the end of the year, around May, she said, okay, well, next week is our last rehearsal. And you know that this time we don't have a concert. That's sad, but we cannot, because I can't remember why. And then, ding, I thought, oh, no concert, no rehearsal. There is a month of orchestra. And I stood up. I was a bit shy at the start, at the time, but I stood up and I asked Laetitia, this conductor, do you think I can actually take some rehearsals and just carry on with my own kind of little ensemble and just do some Bach or Mozart? And she said, yeah, that's quite a good idea, because she knew I wanted to do some conducting. That's a good idea. And I said, look, I want to manipulate sounds. That's all what I want to do. I want to try stuff. And she said, yeah, okay, I'll come and coach you. Perfect. So I basically announced that at the end of the rehearsal, who would like to come and carry on a little bit the orchestra. We did some Elgar serenade for strings and some, I think, Mozart concerto, piano concerto. And we just organized, after 2 or 3 rehearsals, a little concert for our parents. And that's how I kind of began, without any skills in 1, 2, 3, 4, but of course I learned so much by watching her. Absolutely. And at the time she was the only conductor I had, so I didn't have any other kind of point of view of conductor.
I mean, you made me remember that actually probably the first time I ever encountered a conductor, it was a female conductor. The Senior Strings Orchestra of the Meadow Music Centre, for those listeners who know me, right back in about 1982, and it would have been Angela and Helen Payne, and they were probably the first people who ever conducted me. So I don't think I ever really thought that that there should be a barrier there, or there should be that it was strange for females to conduct orchestras. They were the first people I was ever conducted by. But then, of course, going on from there, I didn't encounter another one until I got to the conservatoire. And it would have been either Sian Edwards or Odelina de la Martinez, who were, in the profession and working. Good that, you started off your own little ensemble and did that sort of thing early on. I read that you studied in London at the Royal Academy of Music. How did that come about? What made you decide to go and study in the UK rather than stay and try and study in Paris?
So it's funny, at the moment I'm reading the book by Renaud Capuçon. He just wrote it this year. And he's talking about he's touching the French mentality is so different. It's very much about soloist. If you want to embrace a career in orchestra, you're seen as are you okay? Are you not mad? And he thought, I want to enrich myself and I want to touch chamber music. I want to be, he was the leader of the Gustav Mahler, etc. And he played with amazing conductors. And he's also a soloist. I mean, he's now really a big soloist. And so he's touching really something that in France we have this judgmental, negative, let's say, vision. And so I just didn't want to embrace this. And my parents said, look, we trust you. They lived in the US for quite a while before I was born. So they have this kind of open mind. And they were a little bit, of course, worried about, but are you going to be able to survive in London? It's so expensive. And we can help you, of course, but it's difficult. And I said, trust me, honestly, I know what I'm doing, and I'm someone, if when I do something, I do it to the end. And I knew it was there. I mean, I've never said to myself, oh, do I want to be a musician, or do you want to be a teacher, like a literature teacher or a lawyer? No, I've never questioned myself, which is now talking to some of my friends, they questioned themselves and they had to think twice. And for me, it was just natural. So I was happy. But about London, so after I finished my violin studies, I had my feeling. I did a music course, and my chamber music teacher was a viola player. And he sensed something, that violin, it was fine, but I just felt the harmony, the lower lines, the meat in the sandwich kind of was missing inside me. So he said, Chloé, with the technical ability you have, I prepare you to Paris Conservatoire in 2 months, and you go, you audition, and you get in. I said, okay, good, I'll do that. And without, but that's very important to say, without losing the line that I wanted to be a conductor since the age of 13. It kind of was there. I was so fascinated by this job, thinking that's so cool, just to guide the orchestra, to build something, to develop the sound, etc. So I always took the instrument, violin and viola, as a tool to go step by step. And when I am on the podium, I am 100% fine with what's happening in the string, because I actually felt it myself. So London arrived after 2 years in Paris Conservatoire. When I say Paris Conservatoire, I didn't go to the CNSM. I went to the regional conservatoire, because I never really wanted to go to the conservatoire because of this negativity kind of thing. And England and Germany, it was maybe either one or the other, but at the time my boyfriend was in London, so I followed him, and I knew that orchestral studies were much more developed in the UK. So here I go. I enrolled for 4 years at the Royal Academy of Music, studying with Yoko Inoue, and of course I was all the time playing for the conductors in the conducting class. At the time, it was, who was teaching there before Sean, Colin Metters. And I met so many young conductors, and Valentina Pelleggi, and I don't know if you have heard about her, but she was also one of Marina Alsop's Taki Fellow, and so many, Jessica Cotis.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned in a sentence there that for you, the violin and the viola was your way into orchestras, and you knew it. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew from the age of 14 that I wanted to be an orchestral violinist. I wasn't interested in being a soloist, wasn't interested in being a quartet player. I knew I wanted to play professionally in an orchestra as a violinist. I've subsequently realized that actually, like you, it could have been almost any instrument. If I was good enough, all I was actually interested in was orchestras, not necessarily the violin. You know, I wasn't one of these who had to play all of the Bach sonatas and partitas, or all of the Brahms sonatas, or all of the Beethoven sonatas. I wasn't interested in learning Paganini or Wieniawski or any of that stuff. I just wanted to play in orchestras. The second violin part of a Mahler symphony interested me far more than any Wieniawski or Paganini or showpiece. It's interesting that you knew that from the start, whereas I discovered it since I've stopped. You know, that was my way into orchestras, and orchestras was the big thing for me. And I think you made the best decision ever to come to London, or it could have been Germany, as you said, because I think you get that all-round perspective of what you can be as a musician. It's not all about just you being you, the soloist. Yeah, well done, you.
I don't know. I just when I said that I knew it, I didn't say to my parents, I want to become a conductor at the end of 10, but it was there. It's really flourished, and I could really, I could just feel it, and I was so excited. Every Wednesday afternoon, it was the 2 hour session, orchestra session. I was always like, I am so excited to play and to make music with each other, and also, you know, when Laetitia, the conductor, was stopping the orchestra to rehearse the wind, I would just like, okay, score. Where is my score? I want to know what's happening. And also, you know, I've played with the European Union Youth Orchestra and in Pacific Music Festival, and and also at the Academy of Music, of course, with so many great conductors, Bitchkov, Jack Bernstein, actually, Mark Elder, etc. And I more and more I could see what gestures or what you should be doing or not sometimes. And I think I've learned, to be very honest, I've learned a lot more in the orchestra. And then when I enrolled as a conducting student, as a master conducting student, I had a lot of, maybe not rehearsal technique, but a lot of experience behind me as a player in the orchestra. But even just the psychology of how you talk to an orchestra.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm sure that people who don't have a lot of experience, or maybe some pianists, not all of them, of course, but might have less ease, maybe, to express yourself, to know that, you know, you need to talk to the last player and to really actually look at the last player, otherwise you'll lose everyone or whatever.
Yeah, that orchestral grounding is I think it's so important. Just being in rehearsals and you discover yourself from, as you say, Laetitia at the beginning, all the way through until, you know, you go out and become a conductor yourself. Everybody you play for, you form an opinion as to, I quite like the way that they said that, and that's made me play better, or you've just said that and that's made me really angry, or you've just wasted my time, or oh my God, you just fixed that in 30 seconds. How did you do that? And all of these things go into your experiences and into your brain, and when you decide to, you know, squash them all together and make yourself a conductor or want to be a conductor, you know, they all stay in there. I don't know how you can ever conduct an orchestra if you've never been in an orchestra rehearsal.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm interested, at the academy, you said you were playing for the orchestra which the conducting students was working with under Colin Metters. At the academy, did you switch and do some conducting there, or did the switch come when you left the academy, went to the Royal Northern College, and then studied with Clark and Mark, as I like to call them, Clark Rondell and Mark Heron? Did the switch come then, or did you have some experiences with Colin and conducting at the academy?
So I've never conducted at the academy, but you can take a second study, and of course I took conducting, and I knew that this second study was very popular. So I was absolutely on board to go and just like to put my name first. It was a must. So I studied a bit. I never studied at all with Colin, but when I was toward the end of my studies, so I went there 2010, 2014. I enrolled in master classes with Pavo Jarvi, Jorma Panula. I've done one class with Mark and Clark, and that's where they saw me there. I did an audition actually to the Royal Northern College of Music. They asked me to come.
Yeah.
They said to you, we know that you are doing master classes. We know that you might also need some more technical stuff. Would you like to, we have a spare place. You don't have to audition. Do you want to come? I was like, wow, that's really great, because the audition process is so difficult as well. And I thought, I need a structure. I need to go beyond my small technical things. It's not, I learned so much with Jorma Panula, and I learned a lot also with Yavi Pavo, but of course I needed to switch. And for me, it was difficult to say, okay, when am I going to switch totally to conducting? Because I was in the middle, I had a very good string quartet. We played at the Big Mall and stuff, so it was going well. And then really gradually at the first year in 2015, I started conducting masters in Manchester. I said to my quartet, look, I mean, for sure I can come back twice a week or something, but I have so much scores to learn, and I really want to be a good student, and also I really want to become a good conductor, and I really have to focus on that. So we separated with my quartet. It was kind of like, okay, I swapped totally. But for me, when I still study some scores now, when I study some scores, I still come back on my viola violin to try some stuff, to connect a little bit. It's very important. So I think the swap, I've never conducted at the academy, but for sure attending Colin Method's classes all the time. It was a string quintet all the time. I was thinking, oh my God, like the gesture she did or he did was not so appropriate, but why? And then, wow, this gesture was amazing. And it had such an effect on my bow. Okay. And I was just really putting that there. Or as you said, when Mark Elder or Jack Van Steen, etc., they came, I was actually taking notes on my score. I actually had my score in rehearsal. And all my friends at this time knew I wanted to become a conductor. So there was not like, oh, wow, she just had a score like in rehearsal. What a little...
what a swat.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me, in Manchester, I can't remember because it's so many episodes ago, dear listeners of the podcast, but can you tell us what Clark and Mark gave you technically? What did they have? Drills, exercises? Were they... there's a golfing term, ham and egging it, which is one partner does one thing and the other partner does the other. Was one much hotter on score study and learning and the other dealing with technique? How did they approach it?
It's difficult to say. I think Mark was much more on some technical bits, let's say, and Clark was more about general stuff. But both of them, yes, they had treatments. We call them treatments. So there is the wall treatment, for instance, because we all are very excited at Young's conductor, and we have tendency to lean, to move all the time, the head doing everything. So the information is way too much for everyone. So therefore, I did at least a big month or 2 months at the wall. So you have all the back of your head, everything on the wall, and only you can do everything with your arm. This was so good, very efficient. I hated it at the start, and I was just like almost crying in my bedroom trying to do it, but because the music was everywhere and therefore canalize. And now I thank them so much. Recently, I was actually in Manchester to conduct an orchestra, and I met the class there, and I'm thanking them so much about the wall treatment. So they have, some kind of exercises. What the main interesting thing about the course on the contrary of the academy, is that you manipulate sound all the time. You're always, I mean, COVID, except, but when I was there, you always are in a rehearsal somewhere, either assisting or working with the opera or in a chamber ensemble, or actually one of the main and important thing was to assist at the BBC Philharmonic, Liverpool. And when Sir Mark Elder, who is really much associated with the RNCM, he gave us classes, and he also asked some of us to assist when Jonathan Hayward couldn't do, and Jonathan was asking me often to actually, can you cover me on this? So it was brilliant. I just loved it. This
has been touched on many times in the past, is this, it's just the right age for you to sit in rehearsals. The names you just mentioned, but others I've read on your biography, sitting in rehearsals of Vladimir Yurovsky, Francois Xavier Roth, Sir Mark Elder, John Storgårds, Vasily Petrenko, all of these people who regularly work in the northwest of England, that Manchester, Liverpool area, where you have 4 great orchestras there, and all of the time there's somebody for you to assist, to watch, to have lessons from. When I've been on the adjudication panel for the CBSO assistant conductor's job, we've had 200 or more applicants. And one of the jobs that you have as when you're on the panel is to sit and look at the videos that they send. And I always watch the videos first. And I think I got really rather good at spotting somebody who'd gone through the RNCM with Mark and Clark, because they were very sorted technically. And as you said, they're very sorted posture-wise, standing very straight. And I think I could spot them very well, very, very immediately, and think, there's another RNCM one. Then I'd open up the CV and go, yes, I was right. Oh, I see. And then, they go on to a long list and then on whatever. So I think it's a really good class, but it's because it's where it is as well. Don't you agree? You've got the Liverpool Phil just 30 miles down the road, BBC Phil in Salford, the Halle, Manchester Camerata. Yeah, it's such a rich place to learn.
And what I loved about this class is that they left our personality, because some teachers can totally transform someone physically. And there is a conservatoire that I know, I'm not going to mention it, but you see the students, they're all the same. And that's such a shame, because, the way that I bring something different than one of my colleagues, and he brings something or she brings something just different. And I think they don't try, they never said, it has to be done like that. It can be done like this, but perhaps I would just prefer, to be in 1 instead of 3 or something.
Yes. Yeah.
But Mark Heron would always say, try with the orchestra, if it's the student orchestra, of course. And then, of course, there is the discussion about, you have to sort yourself out while you're a student, because once you're out, you are out and you're in danger. I mean, and also the first meeting I had with them, with Clark and Mark, I said, okay, I want 2 things. I want at least to have invited some management at the end of my studies, not too soon, but I need to be so honest, and I was so honest with the managers I had, I met, to say, look, I'm only in my 2nd year, but I'm really eager to have a management. And also I said to them, I would like to audition for an international competition. So this happened with Besançon at the end of my 2nd year.
Well, let's leap ahead a bit and talk about competitions. Because, as you said, you applied for Besançon, but you also in 2019 did the Deutsche Dirigentenpreis, which in English is the German Conducting Prize, and got to the final there. I mean, actually today, as part of my homework, I had a look to see what was required, and that's a really tough competition, really tough. You have choices there, but let's talk globally about competitions. Having to my knowledge now, you've applied for 2. Maybe you've applied for more. What's your views on competitions? What are your views on the structure of them? Did you enjoy them? And enjoy, I put in inverted commas, because we can enjoy something by being under pressure and having a lot to learn, or you can just enjoy them because of the sheer hell of it. How were competitions for you?
Well, for me, it's never been like a must. We don't have to do competition. So I think that's a main point. And I've done 3 actually. I have done Besançon, and I think I was a bit young in my head, saying, "Okay, Chloé, I'm going to win." And this was so not the attitude, because when I won though the 3rd prize last year of the Cologne competition, I was so relaxed. And I think the more relaxed I am, the more myself I am, and therefore the more communicative I can be, or whatever. But they're all, and the second one, it was the London Symphony, of course, competition.
The Donatello flick.
Yeah, exactly. But all of them were so different. Besançon was so well organized. It kind of puts your stress level much lower than if it's not organized. Yeah, it was 5 or 6 rounds. I mean, it was totally really mad, actually. But on all the round was something different. And I was stopped at the opera round just because I was not very experienced in opera. And also, they put us in the pit with the orchestra and the singers on stage, which just never happens before. No. So this was in Besançon. And in Cologne, that I just won last year, I mean, 3rd prize, I didn't win. The first round was actually working only with the singers, with the piano. So real life, actually, situation.
Yes.
Working on the text, working on the colors, etc. Then 2nd round was a little bit weird, but anyway, it was in 2 parts, with carrying on the work you have done, but this time putting it with the orchestra. So it's like an organic growth, really. And then symphonic, Beethoven 3rd Symphony, which I just love. And I have a very specific sound in my mind about Beethoven, and it just I think made it go to the 2nd round, just because I was a little bit nervous with the opera beat, but actually it was so much fun to work with the singers. I think if we have the right mentality in a competition, it's enjoyable.
Yeah, it's amazing that over the now, this weekend, episode 39 came out. I'm talking to Chloé 2 days before Christmas 2020. So even in those 39 episodes, but then there is another 30 in the can I haven't edited yet. Things I've learned, for instance, the amount of people who entered a competition thinking I have absolutely no chance of winning this whatsoever, who went on to win it, is quite amazing. Through that, through all of those episodes, I could list them. People who, Andrew Litton was even in the first full episode. He said, I arrived in London. I was expecting a week of sightseeing and then I'd fly home again, and he won the damn thing. So I think that's really important. I think the structure of these competitions, by speaking to past winners and how they went through it, is really important for you to get your head around before you enter them. We're going to get onto guest conducting and an amazing list of people you've been invited to conduct who you already have, and I see that you should have probably conducted by now if it hadn't been for COVID. But do you think you would carry on entering competitions in the future, or do you think, right, I've done 3 now, I know that what's entailed and maybe I don't want to do any more?
Yeah, I'm not doing anymore. Because
I didn't start really conducting until I was 35. So, and as you'll know, that's the cutoff age for any competition. Virtually all of them cut off at 35. So I could never ever apply. So I'm never going to know. I'm now the grand age of 50. I think I'd love to have had to go once to see what they were like, but you seem very certain that no more competitions for you.
I think the question we need to ask is like, why do we need to apply for a competition? It's not to say, oh, I've done a competition. I mean, for me, it's more kind of 3 things: learning repertoire, opening to different orchestras, and having a manager. So by the time I won the 3rd prize of the Dirigent Prize in Germany, I had my manager at Intermusica, and I signed with them, and it was basically, we talked about it like, Chloé, you should do it to open to Germany, and it's great. And I was very grateful, actually. I didn't, well, I'm not sure I can say this, but I didn't win, because when you're winning, and perhaps talking to Jonathan Hayward or Ben Glasberg, winning a competition has so much impact straight away on your, it's suddenly, wow, just a bubble of fire. And for me, my bubble of fire, I'm very happy that it grows organically. And the orchestras are watching, and I'm really happy that I'm really busy anyway. So I think winning, you have to be so secure technically, also, because you're just really in the middle of the lion cage with everyone. So yeah, you have to be able to be basically the best. And I'm very happy to have my third prize. It's perfect.
I like your bubble of fire, and I think a slow burning, slowly growing bubble is possibly the way forwards.
Totally.
You don't want to burn out, to carry on with burning. Before we leave sort of studies and mentorship and go out into the big wide world and talk about your guesting, but also about Arch Sinfonia, I'm intrigued, and I think I'd love our listeners to know about the Taki Concordia Fellowship. What I've read is that you were chosen by Marion Alsop for that. Maybe you could explain what the Taki Concordia Fellowship is, what it entails, how were you chosen? What sort of things happen? Are you mentored by Marion a lot? Just tell us all about Taki Concordia, because I know for a fact this has not come up on any previous podcast.
Yeah.
You're the first person I've talked to about this. Yeah.
So it all comes back to 2002, when Marion founded this Taki Concordia to support young female conductors emerging. And she always said, I was the first female to start conducting in the world. No one really before me was in the world of conducting in the female scene. She was Bernstein's student.
Yes.
And so and Bernstein never thought she could not do it. And actually, Marion told me that in one class, she was of course the only female. And Bernstein said, well, there will be only one student who will be able to do the concert with me. And I'm going to choose Marion. Marion, can you come with me? And so for me, it's, first it's great to actually have a kind of a direct link to Bernstein through her. She created her Taki Concordia Orchestra way before 2002. So, but Mr. Taki is a Japanese, I think he's dead now, but was a Japanese guy who sponsored her to say, look, you have the talent. Mr. Bernstein said that, you have the talent. Why don't you, put this orchestra together? I'm sponsoring, I'm just giving you some money. Yeah. Brilliant. So she started to do this orchestra. And then she thought, well, I mean, this needs to have a legacy. I need to mentor the young generation, or I need at least to tell my story or something like this. So in 2002, she auditioned, and I'm not so sure what the conditions were, but nowadays, my God, she told me like she had so many applications. So basically you have to apply by sending a video. I think it's quite precise. You need to send 3 different periods. You need to also do a little interview of yourself, like just a selfie video. You send that to Marion or to the Taki Concordia team. Maybe out of 400 or 300 applicants, she needs to go to the second round. So that we don't know. Once you apply, you hope for the best, and that's it. So then Taki Concordia team said to the semi-finalists, I had no idea there were rounds. Well, congratulations, you're instead of 400 or 300, we go to 8. Totally mad. So 8, great. I'm in the 8 final, and then I was in the 4 finalists. I had a little chat with Marion, and then here we go. She chatted again to me, and she said, "Look, you're the next fellow," and I was absolutely delighted because it means I have some money, $15,000, and then she said there is absolutely no obligation. So you do what you want.
Wow.
You do what you want. You use her the way you want. Yeah. So COVID was last March 2020. I started in September 2019, and luckily she was in London. So I straight away started my fellowship with her in London with the London Philharmonic, doing a recording with her. And, it was just before actually the Dirigentenpreis competition. And I said, look, can we go through a few things? Can I ask you some advice? Yeah, let's get a Coca-Cola. She's only drinking Coca-Cola. Let's get a drink. So here, we went through the score. Here, I suggest you do this because the horns will be late. No. So we go through things like this. And during the whole COVID, every week I was releasing an interview with her. So it was my little podcast series called A Moment with Marine. And we were chatting about so many things, and I've learned a lot about her, her life with, her life, part of life with Bernstein, different orchestra sound, Sao Paulo, Baltimore, and now Vienna. And but yeah, it's I'd like to see her physically doing some physical stuff, even though she's been great, because actually she's really treating me a little bit like Mark and Clark. She's really treating me for who I am and not reproducing herself into me. She's much shorter than me. I am tall, I'm 180, and I'm thin. She is short and a little bit thicker than I am, let's say it. And therefore the sound will not be the same. And so it is interesting too, but I'm trying to find a way to how I can use her for my last year. Well, for my last year and a half, actually.
I think at this stage of any conductor's career, to have, this is almost like an extra assistant conductor's job, that you have a mentor at this point of your career. You're starting out on guest conducting. You'll be looking at forming relationships with orchestras, good relationships that maybe in the future could end up being principal guest or a job as the boss. I think to have that ability to just speak to somebody of her stature and her knowledge and her wisdom is a really important thing.
Yeah, it gave me, I think, some weight as well to who I am, and also some orchestras who might want to invite me. Oh, she's also Marine Alsop Fellow. Maybe it means something. It can add some weight. I don't know.
So guest conducting, as you've just said, you're with the Taki Concordia Fellowship and with Marine, you're getting to see orchestras whilst assisting and watching her rehearsals, but you're also forming your own relationships already. You've been to RPO, BBC Scottish, and been re-invited straight back. Looking at where you've been and where you should have been because of COVID, and where you are going to be. You've got debuts coming up across the UK, across the US, France, Germany. I'm sure there are places further afield. How have those been for you? Obviously that you're right at the very start of a career. And so virtually every time you go and stand in front of an orchestra at the moment, it's the first time. You're not standing unless it's in front of your own orchestra, which I'll come to soon. You're standing in front of every orchestra for the first time at this stage of your career. How have you found it? Do you have any personal strategies or thought processes or maybe ones that have been given to you by Marine, of ways of thinking about every time Monday morning or standing in front of another new orchestra? Tell us what it's like as somebody who's really is in that position.
Yeah, for sure, each time you don't know an orchestra is kind of a sort of an audition in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can be scary sometimes, and also it depends on the countries. Even though I'm French, my French is not good. And it's true. Like a few days ago, Nick Cullen, he called me because obviously I'm French, and he was conducting Orchestre National de France. And he said, look, can you tell me the difference between a few things? And I was like, oh my God, pressure is on me, because I honestly, sometimes I go in front of a French orchestra and I have to say things in English, and I have to apologize. It's ridiculous. But in a way,
I think plenty of orchestras have listened to me speaking English and thinking, what language is he talking?
So my mind is never panicked at all. It's always a joy to be in front of an orchestra. I love it, and even the ones that are massive names, and actually in start of February, I'm going to CBSO. So
Ah.
it's yeah. So it's always I don't really have any fear, because I think or any special preparation mentally or something. The only thing I need to know is a little bit of the layout sometimes of the piece, and of course I decide, but sometimes it's like this. And for instance, at the BBC Scottish recently, they said, sorry, we have to stay like this because the cameras are fixed, and it was very difficult for me to have this sound world, but it worked really perfect, really well. In terms of mental preparation, I like having my own kind of vision of where all the strings start, etc. And staying myself. I think staying humble and staying yourself, and also knowing that the members of the orchestra are hopefully happy to be playing the repertoire I'm going to conduct, helps, I think. And also, I've been there, I've been in the orchestra, so I know the psychology of it. It's always a pleasure, actually.
Well, I mean, you've come on the see, struggling with English. I might even leave that bit in. You've basically said the line that I think is the most important line that any conductor at any stage of their career needs to think, which is be yourself. If you try and be anything other than yourself, there will be anywhere between 50 and 100 people, well, not now, but because of COVID, but 50 and 80 people on the platform who are going to look at you and think, she's not being herself, or he's not being himself. And I think it's really important. And it's and to go one step further than that is to also to know, and Barbara Hannigan said it, she was worried that she'd been somewhere and it just didn't work. And then she spoke to people like Jarowski, like Simon Rattle, and they laughed and said, yeah, well, we've all been there, Barbara. We've all had a week where it didn't work. Just accept it and move on, and accept that you were being yourself and that chemistry isn't there, that we all have a bad week now and again. But the point is,
hard, that.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, it's the hardest thing of all. I had one not so long before lockdown came, and every second you think, oh my God, what have I done wrong? What have I said wrong? In the end, often you've done nothing wrong. It just isn't. It isn't you and them. It's not going to work. It's the chemistry thing, and that move on. There are plenty of other people that will. And looking at the people you've been invited to go and conduct and have been re-invited by, of course it's working, but occasionally it happens. And I think the most important thing that you do is carry on being yourself. That line is so important.
Yeah, I think we are not, now that I'm thinking about it, we are not prepared in colleges to hear this, actually, because we think, okay, we are invited to go to conduct in an orchestra and it's going to be brilliant. And well, actually, no, not all the time. No. And I didn't know, but it's true, we don't really think about the chemistry thing. And it's true that I had one bad experience with an orchestra, and I was in tears. And I said, I texted Marin saying, look, can we have a little chat? Because I'm actually, I don't understand what's happening. And she exactly said what you said, like sometimes it just doesn't work. And what can you do? You're not going to you have to manage yourself. And why don't
you can't turn that situation around. You can't. There isn't a magic sentence or an incredibly funny joke that you can tell the orchestra that's going to get them on your side. It just doesn't exist. So you better, you do the concerts, and actually sometimes the concerts are really exciting, even though there's borderline hostility. But you just move on and walk away, and then the next week when you walk in with somebody for the first time and there's an instant chemistry there, and we've both been there as well, my God, you just smile and think, oh right, now we can make music together, that's why we do it.
But the orchestras as well, I had one orchestra in mind where you actually think, are they bored, or don't they like the music? And actually at the general rehearsal, we had 3 days. It was contemporary music, and it was a little bit difficult. We had I had so much to coordinate, etc. But the orchestra was so noisy, and I thought, a French orchestra, by the way. But I thought, okay, they don't enjoy it, but anyway, I had to carry on. I had my concert and stuff, and at the end, the director of the orchestra said, well, I really thought that I was not really welcomed or in the orchestra. And then he said, well, I'm hearing everything is going superb and they love you. I said, oh, well, this is great to know because I have no idea. I cannot really say with their face. And sometimes it can be the situation where it's so nice that someone tells you this because you don't know. But in a way, it's something we need to remember that maybe someone is just in a bad mood because their kids just had
absolutely.
was ill or whatever in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
In 2012, you founded the Arch Sinfonia in London. First of all, why? Why did you want to fond, whatever, your own orchestra? And how does it work? How many concerts a year do you do? Do you have specific projects that you think, right, this is ideal for them? How did it come about?
So at the very start, Arch, because arching the different four music school in London, Academy, College, Guildhall, and Trinity. Because I, as a viola player, really was so frustrated to only play with the academy people. And I thought, I mean, come on, there are 3 other colleges that have a really amazing musicians. So let's do something. Let's do a collaboration kind of. So it started like this. And then in terms of concerts, I put quite a lot on. Actually, I was so happy that a lot of my friends from the conducting class at the academy came and supported and gave me some advice. It was really nice. Then we all grew up together, we graduated together, and I didn't want it to carry on as a student orchestra. So it became a freelance orchestra. But of course, it's difficult without money to freelance. So I had a friend who helped me a little bit with fundraising. I mean, not really, but we I kind of knocked at the door and the door opened. So I took it. I mean, and they actually still carry on sponsoring and doubling even the money every year. Brilliant. So it's amazing. And I'm so grateful for this. But now that I have a budget and I'm really much on my own with this, and of course, having the career that I have, it's so difficult. So now it's more something like, well, without COVID, 5-6 concerts a year, which is not a lot. But before we were like 10, 9. I mean, because we were rehearsing at the Academy of Music. We were therefore a free venue. We also had the librarian who was helping us finding the scores. I could print. It was so luxurious to be doing Art Symphonia at the start. I always wanted to take also Art Symphonia to give the opportunity to the composers to be able to premiere some work. So this, and also to some of my friends, and now, Tom Gould played with us, Hannah Roberts from Manchester Camerata, Jolt from Concertmaster from Philharmonia. They all played with us as a soloist, and the atmosphere is fantastic because we're all like young freelancers. But the only thing that I miss is a fundraiser now, because we have some money, but I need to invest some money in the fundraiser and just to bring it. I'm so inspired by Nick Collins' orchestra, Aurora, whom I've played, and it's so good. I want to play a proms with my orchestra, like. But I believe in and the collaboration transformed a little bit more in a collaboration within the arts. So we have done concerts around paintings, for instance, with dancers, for instance. So Art Symphonia has grown from student to freelancers, and almost all of the players are from 2010. And if a lot of them have also have job, like some of them in the RLPO. So it's still a nice something, but it's missing the structure.
Yes. Well, that's brilliant. And I especially love the cross arts ideas. You made me chuckle inside when you were talking about putting dancers to Bruckner's Seventh Symphony. I know this anecdote. A friend of mine told me this anecdote that he was at a reception once with Simon Rattle, and this friend of mine was a player in the orchestra and on the board of the directors, which is why he was at this reception. And the night was going on a bit, and they started playing games, and they decided to try and work out what the most unlikely musical form any composer would come up with, and the winning answer was a ballet by Bruckner. So,
oh, really?
I think it was Simon Rattle's idea that the most unlikely thing ever written would be a ballet by Bruckner. But it turns out that you're going to do one, so we'll find out whether it works.
Let's see.
Yeah, exactly. Chloé, it's been a while since anybody has talked to me about youth orchestras, or I've talked to them about youth orchestras. I know that you've conducted National Children's Orchestra, Halle Youth, Hertfordshire School Symphony Orchestra. Some conductors don't think we should work too often with youth orchestras because they think it changes our technique or it changes our rehearsal technique, whereas others, like Jack Van Steen, like myself, like others in the podcast have said, they love it because the youth orchestra gives them a renewed sense of energy. You can feed off the energy of the youth players. Also, the fact that you have to learn the score almost twice more than you would, when you're working with a professional orchestra. What do you get out of working with youth orchestras? And do you think it will be something that you can always see yourself doing? I do personally. I think I will always have a foot in a youth orchestra here or a foot in an amateur orchestra there. But what do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. I had the same discussion a few days ago with Leila, my manager, because I said to her, even if I take the path of conducting a professional orchestras, for me, it's so important that I keep at least a week or something with youth. And people who say, "Oh, it transforms the technique." Well, it's if you do it like more than half a year, yes, perhaps. But actually, if you dedicate your time and pass your knowledge to the next generation, let's say. It doesn't transform your technique, and as you said, you have to know the score much more because you have also a lot more time to rehearse, and then you can go into the detail. I think it's also a rehearsal process for us conductors. Like imagine you do Mahler 6 with a debut or something, and you say, well, I'm going to train. Like Sir Michael does that. He told me he's never done Brahms 1 before. He was doing Brahms 1 for the first time when he was just before getting 70, which was absolutely incredible with Britain Sinfonia. And he said, well, I'm taking the opportunity to conduct a youth orchestra to actually learn Brahms 1. And I think that's great. For me, this is an aspect for sure, but it's also to share the music. We are not expecting like a recording, top class recording level, etc. But it's more about the process of getting to share the music with them and the knowledge. And I love working with the under 10 of National Children's Orchestra because you have a bunch of kids who really are, you have to canalize their energy. And it's so much fun. And they are so eager to learn. And then recently I was in Chet's School of Music, and we did some beautiful, actually, Wagner Siegfried. But for me, it's so important, to work with the youth. And I will want to carry on for sure, doing a lot of NCO and youth orchestra for sure. It's very important for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you've just said there. There are pieces I've prepared the CBSO Youth Orchestra for and then handed it over to somebody else to conduct the concert. But then I've gone on and conducted myself professionally, and I just think, I know this so well. That's all down to 6 days of teaching the CBSO Youth Orchestra this score. But then also, there's the passing things on, my experiences of 22 years playing in the CBSO, all of that sort of thing. I don't think I would ever want to stop doing that. I think it's important. I think, music education is being cut left, right and centre in this country and possibly elsewhere in the world as it is. Why would you then want to cut it by not helping out yourself? I think it's important that we should.
Yeah.
So,
and even more so, maybe for me as a French a girl who actually has not had, I was not in the French youth orchestra, and actually if you ask any French people, like, is there any youth orchestra, there is only one. It's not at all a culture that we have, so I'm more even eager to carry on. It's like I would love France to have much more youth orchestras. and also for the kids to get motivated, because I think it's mostly the parents in France who say you have to do this, you have to do that, whatever. But here is really a culture,
Yes.
like a bit like in Germany, there is such a great culture of like we want. And I think NCO, National Children's Orchestra, would not exist if there was not this eager culture of we want to do some music together. And so it's even more important for me.
As we talked about earlier, you're somebody who is you've just got on the hamster wheel of conducting, to use my little phrase about guest conducting. You're on the wheel. And why a hamster? Because hamsters like being on the wheel, but sometimes it's difficult to get off. But by being on that wheel, and by being, until COVID came, and after COVID it'll come, your career will go back to being as busy as it was, which means you have new music coming at you left, right and centre. Either music that is brand new, or that you might do with Arch, or stuff that you just haven't got around to conducting yet. So when you learn a new score, do you have a process that you always use? You said you use the violin and viola, as I do, to check bowings, but do you sit at your desk, or do you go to the piano? And do you write things in, or do you not write things in? Are you a red, blue and black like me, or are you a completely white blank page like so many others?
So I'm a red and blue and pencil, and I'm trying to go much less because I feel that when there is too much information, it's like a double score, and we don't want a double score. For me, I never open a score without reading about the biography of the composer. So, for instance, I was doing some Saint-Saëns today, Carnaval des Animaux. So I went directly there, and Saint-Saëns has such an amazing life, and then I could just go into the sound world easily, let's say. And I always zoom in and out between these. So I never say, okay, I've done my homework about who is what, and then I go to the music. I always come back to the internet and read more, and I'm so curious about those things. In terms of detail, etc., I usually do big picture first, picture, and then more and more I go into the detail, but I always zoom in and out, always.
Right.
I think Natalie Studman as well said about it to be a bit more mathematical in terms of structure. I need to put in my score second theme or third theme development. I need to do this. I always put also an adjective, so that's French or in English. Sometimes if I have to conduct the score in England, I put it in English. If I have to do it in French, I just try in French. But sometimes honestly, I don't know, and I have to go to Google Translate, and it's very ashamed for me. But I put a few things. I'm really trying, and today because I've listened to quite a few episodes now of Mike on the podium, and I know that you were asking the guest about this question, and therefore each time I was opening a score, I was thinking, should I or not put my red and blue?
I think you should do whatever you like. I think that's what totally. What's come out of the podcast. I mean, I actually find that I learn the score better by writing things in. Other people, one particular podcast episode I can remember, this conductor said, write something in. If you write something in, it shows you don't know the music. And I was sitting there thinking, oh, okay, right. But you do what you want. I think that's the point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think more and more I'm trying to actually listen. I'm singing a lot when I don't play the piano, so I'm singing a lot. And of course, solfège is great for that. And I sing with the name of the notes. I found that also when I'm in front, well, this is a bit of a bracket about solfège, but when I'm in front of an orchestra and I'm asking, can you play this line a little bit with more pronounce all the notes, do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, or something like this. The fact that I say the notes is not la, 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 I just have to, and the timbre goes really with that. But so when I'm at the table, I really sing like this. I don't want to listen to too much recordings before I have my own interpretation, and for sure I don't listen to one recording. But if I do some Beethoven, I know that the first recording I might just take is Harnoncourt, or I love the Pavo Jarvis recording with Brennan. But yeah, I think it's more structure, details for sure. And when I go to detail, I really go to detail. I know exactly what front of the note is and how it ends on each line. I'm much more a vertical person, reading person, let's say.
Yes.
But then I'm trying more and more to go into the horizontal. And sometimes I'm thinking, okay, today I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to sing from the start of the piece to maybe the second theme, only the flute. And then I'm going to do that on just to see actually, oh, actually I forgot to, to remember when, or to analyze where the second flute is going to play this start, or because I only was in this kind of direction, vertical. So I'm really doing a combination of everything, but for me as well, zooming out as well. And then something I have discussed recently with Marine and Karina Kanelakis as well is, physically, do you conduct or not at home?
At this point, Chloe and I had a 10-minute discussion about whether we should practice conducting at home or not, and what benefits there may or may not be. To hear that discussion, head over to patreon.com/A Mic on the Podium, where I have posted it as a companion mini-episode for Patreon subscribers. Details are in the show notes below. Chloe, as a listener of A Mic on the Podium, you know what's coming next. It's 10 questions time. And yay hurrah. Well, I know some conductors have gone, oh, no, not the 10 questions, but you've gone, yay. Yeah, I know. So you will know that I always start with, what sound or noise do you love, and what sound or noise do you hate?
So I love the sound of the birds and the rivers, the leaves, or just the silence. And I hate very much, very, very much, the very loud motorcycles and very light cars like Ferraris or Porsche. It's absolutely unbearable. And also I hate the adverts with a very fast voice that makes you suddenly stress a lot, on the radio. I just cannot stand that.
Yeah, at the end when they go, terms and conditions. Yeah, I know the ones.
Exactly. Oh, God.
And I do know somebody, actually, because I was with him when he got this, who had a very, very expensive sports car and had a button fitted in his car to turn the silencer off on his exhaust. So people actually do modify their cars to make them even noisier than they've been designed to
God.
be.
What's the point?
Well, I think we all know why they were doing that. There's all sorts of psychological reasons we can use. Next, if you had 24 hours free, what would you spend it doing?
So hiking, skiing, and traveling with my backpack. It's in the nature with my boyfriend also. That's great.
Skiing, nobody's really said that before, I don't think.
I love it. Well, maybe because I don't know. I'm French, and we have the best. I mean, we have the Alps and the Pyrenees. I just love it, and I've skied since the age of 4. And oh yeah, if I could do some ski competitions on the side, I would love. But I just love skiing. It's such an amazing sensation. Do you ski?
No, I've never skied in my life. I think it's
You're
got to the point.
out.
It's got to the point now where I think I'd be frightened about breaking something if I did ski now.
Yeah, it's true.
People say to me, because I play cricket and I got hit in the face by a cricket ball 4 years ago, and it broke my jaw into 3 places. People say to me, "Oh, why do you still play cricket?" And I said, "Because I love it." And it would be exactly the same if I said to you, aren't you worried about breaking your arm skiing? You're going to go, no, I love it. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
It was
I've never had any accident. My first violin teacher said, like, please don't do skiing. I was like, okay, well, no, of course I'm going.
Well, mine was a freak accident, and it doesn't put me off my favorite sport. So it shouldn't put you off skiing. Who would be a favorite conductor of yesteryear?
So I have a few. So the first would be, Claudio Abbado for sure. And actually reading the book by Renaud Capuçon, he clearly puts in his book, and sadly I couldn't feel it, but his left arm is really an extension of his brain, and then the right arm of Renaud Capuçon at the GMGO, the Gustav Mahler Youth, was really the extension of Abbado's left arm, and he described it as a total freedom of sound, and as if he was just like reading his mind. And And when I see him conduct his of course on YouTube, I just feel like it's just something amazing. And he seems very humble as well, humble man. I don't know if he was, but he seems. And also, of course, Kleiber, although I've read so much that he was very tormented, a tormented guy of the podium and very doubting about himself. But when he was on the podium, gosh, I mean, I could just see him, just watching all the time.
Yeah.
So maybe those two, and of course, Aaron Court, I just really like the concept of sound that he developed.
And who would be a favorite current conductor?
Well, I mean, we can, one can ask about on what criteria do I base my opinion? Because if I go with my favorite conductor who really can hear everything, I would probably say Pierre Boulez, or, I mean, although, current conductor, but François-Xavier Roth or Yann Pascal Tortelier. I've had so many, so this is for me, the best conductor is really someone that actually can hear everything. And but although I love them, I would say maybe I love Paavo Järvi. His person. I love Zhukovsky. Gosh, he's very difficult. François-Xavier Roth. So maybe those three. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a difficult question, and you've answered it very, very well and very nicely. And some conductors really moan about that question. I cut out their moanings, but they do moan about it, and that's why the questions I put it in there. There has to be a hard question along there somewhere along the line. What is the hardest work you have ever conducted?
So I think it's Mahler, Das Lied von der Erde, because it's very emotionally, But it was just before COVID happened, and we only had one rehearsal. I have studied like mad, totally mad, and I was still underprepared to my taste. And I just felt like these kind of pieces, you can study it, and you will always find something very deep. And for me, emotionally, but also in terms of preparation work was so hard because in the past I didn't conduct a lot of Mahler symphonies or any Mahler work. So Das Lied was so difficult. And I'm so, I've studied, and then the concert was cancelled. So, gosh, yes, it was such a pain. But hopefully now, I know it, but I need to deepen my everything. I just scratched the surface of something. So hard.
When traveling abroad to conduct, what item could you not leave home without?
It's my sleeping mask, or also my arnica oil, just to relax my upper body.
What is the one thing you would change about being a conductor?
So I think it would be being more accessible, because usually audiences still put us conductors, also Louis actually, on a pedestal. And Sir Macalder with his pre-concert talks, etc. I think at the Halle he kind of breaks something, or at least he wants to engage. So something like this, and also maybe the social barrier or social environment where you can enjoy an evening drink with musicians of an orchestra without feeling a bit awkward because you're the conductor, but you're still human. So those two things, I think, changing. I cannot really, I mean, a lot of your guests have said traveling, but I'm not yet there. I mean, of course I travel quite a lot, but not as much. And I kind of like, escaping my life from home, but as long as then when I come back home, I really, really cherish it.
I loved your answer. Again, I think there should be nothing wrong with going for a drink. If people in the orchestras that you're going to form a bond with, then why not go and have a drink with them? It doesn't mean you have to get legless drunk with them, but and I actually think it was one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast, and I think that's why it's worked, is to show that we're just humans, and which is why 5 of the 10 questions at the end have got nothing to do with conducting. It's all about you being a human being, and I think it's one of the best things to come out is the people who've come on here and who now number something like 64 and counting, and we're still looking. Those who've said yes have all come on and have all been honest about themselves and show that we're just human beings who happen to have a slightly different job than other people.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important. I think there are also some people, and I'm not going to tell you who they are, who have said no to this. because they like being on the pedestal and they like being put in their chauffeur-driven car.
Yeah.
And they like being treated like a god. And, you know, that's fine for you. But I think the rest of the world are really interested to know, you know, that Chloe needs a sleep mask, and when she goes backpacking with her boyfriend out on her skiing trips, and I'll find out soon what you'll eat at the end of the day. I think that's really important.
Exactly.
I think it's very important.
Yeah.
Good. Number 9. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Dancer. A dancer. I would love to be a contemporary dancer, you know, still staying with the creativity part. And I don't really like ballet, although, gosh, they might be just suffering, you know, those poor ballet people, but dancers. But contemporary dance, you express yourself with your body. And sometimes, to be honest, when I was a teenager and I would just come back from Le Châtelet with my parents, seeing a contemporary dance, I would just spend like hours dancing in the in the living room, with some really weird gestures, but just expressing my movements. I love it. I really would love to do some dance.
If the world were to end tonight, what would be your choice of final meal and drink?
So a very nice cooked pad thai, because I love pad thai. It can be prawns or chicken and prawns, why not? And the best gin and tonic. Just give me any great gin. I'm really happy.
Brilliant. Pad thai and gin and tonic. That sounds great.
I mean, that's a weird combination. Maybe with a beer, actually. Maybe let's say cooked, but a nice, very cooked pad thai with a beer, like a very nice pale ale
Yes.
beer. Yeah, and then the best gin and tonic.
Yeah. Well, it's approaching tea time here now, and you just made my stomach rumble. Thank you for that.
Me too, to be honest.
Thank you as well for the last 90 minutes or so, Chloe. It's been really, really interesting. It's been a real pleasure,
nice.
And I hope to meet up with you and see you very soon.
Yes, so do I, and thank you so much for inviting me.
A Mic on the Podium was devised and produced by Michael Seal, with music by Ben Dawson. Next time, I chat with a Grammy Award-winning conductor who started out as a clarinetist, but after winning the Besançon competition in 1982, he's had a long and successful conducting career, holding positions in South Korea, Iceland, the United Kingdom, the United States, and his native Finland. Until then, bye-bye!